Okay, here we go. So to graph this function, we first have to identify the period, and the period is 2 pi over b. Now what's b here? B is the number in front of the theta. Here we don't see a number there, so we know that that's a 1. So 2 pi over 1 is 2 pi, and so the period is 2 pi. Now, we mark that down, and we're going to leave a little space over here because I can see we're going to need to shift the graph, the original graph, to the right, pi over 4 radians. So the first thing, though, we do after graphing the period is we cut the period in half. We're basically dividing the period into 4 equal sections. So pi, I was supposed to do this in pencil, that's okay. So pi over 2, and then if this is 1 pi over 2 from 0 to this mark here, then every mark we see is pi over 2 radians. 1 pi over 2, 2 pi over 2, and then 3 pi over 2. So we've divided the period into 4 equal sections. The next thing we do is we plot the amplitude. And we know the amplitude is the absolute value of the A, and the A is the number right out in front of the sign, the coefficient of the sign, and there's nothing there, so we know that that means that A is 1. So the absolute value of 1 is 1, and we just plot that, a 1 on the vertical axis and the negative 1 as well. So we have all of our parts in place, and all we have to do now is draw the graph of y equals the sine of theta. Now the sine of theta is always going to start off at 0, 0. It's going to go up. So our 5 points are going to be middle, top, middle, low, and then the middle again. And so we're going to draw this using a dashed line because this is our rough draft. And our rough draft is just the y equals the sine of theta without the horizontal shift. Now, since we're going to shift it to the right, pi over 4, we know that because the phase shift is c over b. And c is pi over 4, b is 1, as we said, so the phase shift is pi over 4. If pi over 4 is being subtracted, then we move to the right. If there's a plus sign inside the set of parentheses, we're going to move to the left. So if we're going to move pi over 4 radians, then I need a pi over 4 here on the number line. Well, pi over 4 is halfway between 0 and pi over 2, so I'm just going to go ahead and lock that in. Oops, I meant to put pi over 4 there. So 1 pi over 4, 2 pi over 4, 3 pi over 4, 4. So I'm just going to mark off in between each of the markings that are already here, each of the theta coordinates that are already listed. 1, 3, 5, 7 pi over 4. And then I also have to go past the 2 pi by 1 pi over 4, so 7, 8, 9 pi over 4. And now, how do I pop? Okay, so now I have to just move each of these dots, each of these 5 key points, pi over 4 radians to the right. So the one in the middle goes to the right. Every single one of them goes to the right. If it's on top, it stays on top. Middle stays in middle. Bottom stays on bottom. Middle stays in middle. Now I have 5 new key points, and I just connect the dots. Where is it? And there you have it. And that does keep going, but again, we only need to draw the graph of the function over 1 period. And so the period, our period here would be from pi over 4 to 9 pi over 4. That is a period of 2 pi radians.